Welcome, class, to the Intro to Java Programming. Today's lesson on ArrayList is the second in a series to introduce 4 of the more popular collection data types. ArrayList is one of the most popular collection types available, and some developers may refer to an ArrayList as a list. ArrayList class is a resizable array. What does that mean? If you recall, the array is like an egg carton. You create the object and declare the size. Once the size is declared, it cannot be changed unless you recreate the object. The ArrayList object can change sizes without the need to be recreated. Think of an ArrayList as a line people can stand in. There could be no one in line, people can be added to the last position of the line, and the order people enter the line is maintained. People can leave the line. Time for a Coach Joe Challenge question. With an array list of 3 items, can a new item be added between 2 existing items? Correct. Just like the grade school rhyme, no cutting in line, no exceptions. A person cannot cut in front of another person in this line. All new people will be placed at the back of the line. The size of the line will continue to grow as more and more people are added. Now that you have a basic understanding about an array list, let's cover a few common rules or guidelines. The number of items or elements in an array list can change. All the elements of an array list can hold a single value that must be the same data type, like all ints, all strings, and even all custom objects like the myBank object from Lesson 4. The array list will maintain the order values are added to the collection. Duplicate values are allowed in the elements. If the data type permits, no values are allowed, and the array list offers a sort command. Here is the syntax for declaring an array list. Remember I mentioned that some developers call an array list a list. It's because the variable is declared with the list class. You must declare the data type used by the list inside the angle brackets followed by the variable name. Since the variable object is created from a class, we use the new keyword followed by ArrayList. I would like to point out the use of ArrayList is very handy in specific situations. You should be aware of the ArrayList variable, even though in some cases there could be a better collection option. Let's go to our basics project in IntelliJ. Let's close any open tabs. Inside of our collection package, let's create a new class called ArrayListTest. Let's make a little bit of space. Copy in this first test. Import these objects. Here's a test that creates an empty array list, then adds one item. Notice the .add method for adding a new element. We will test the number of elements in the array list with the .size method. Let's run this test. And it passes. Here is a test that will populate the array list as it is created. Inside the array list constructor, you're allowed to pass in a list of values. Arrays.asList will create a list. And we'll run this test. It passes. You should use an array list when you need to keep track of an unknown number of related items. Often you'll need to keep track of the order the items were added, or you'll need to inspect each element. In this test, we'll keep track of the movies we've seen this week. Notice the size of the list can grow as we add each new item. And if we run this test, it will pass. This test will prove that you must use the same data type for each element of the array list. Notice the compiler error if we try to add a number to a list of strings. Let's comment this line out. We'll run the test. And it'll pass. This test shows how to get a specific index from the array list. The array list has a 0-based index, so the first element is index 0. The .get method will return index 0. And we'll run the test. And it passed. And here's a test that proves the order the items are maintained. We'll run this test, and it passes. Here's a test that adds 3 items and proves the first item is equal to Java. In the next part of the test, we change the value of index 0 to the string maven. The .set method is used to change the existing index. And let's run this test to prove it works. And it passes. Time for another Coach Joe challenge question. An array list has 4 items, index 0, 1, 2, and 3. If index 1 is removed, what would be the value of index 1? Correct. The item at index 2 moves to index 1. Just like people in a line, if one person leaves the line, the remaining people advance 1 position towards the front. The array list works the same way. Let's prove it with a test. Add 4 items and verify the size is 4. Notice the string value Coach Joe is assigned to index 2. The .remove method will remove an index from the array list. In the end, we can prove that the string value for Coach Joe is now assigned to index 1. Let's run this test. And it passed. Duplicate elements are allowed in an array list. This test will prove it. And let's run this test to see it pass. This test proves that null values are allowed, assuming the data type used also allows null values. Let's run this test. And it passes. Here's a test that proves a list can be sorted. Without going into too much detail, the collection.sort command will perform the sort against our array list. And let's run this test. And it passes. Let's run this test in debug mode. Let's set a breakpoint on the sort command. Let's run it in debug mode. Notice our array list variable has the items listed in the order that they were added. Let's step over this command. Now the items are sorted. You'll see that get index 1 is indeed 73. Let's stop this test. Clear the breakpoint, run it again. And the test passes. Great question. There is a command. The last test will demonstrate a very handy command to determine if a value is in the array list, the .contains method. In this test, we'll see if the list contains a specific value. One value should be found and another value should not be found. And we'll run this test. And it passed. Here's a summary of all the test code we wrote in this lesson. You should now have an understanding of the array list collection, including the rules and guidelines. Several tests were written to show the syntax and features, along with examples that illustrate many of the rules and guidelines. Finally, you should be aware that the array list is one of, if not the most popular and widely used collection. Your optional homework assignment is to create a test with a pre-populated array list. Remove an item, change an item, and then add an item. Verify the size and sever values from specific indexes. In the next lesson, we'll cover the hash set collection. Remember, future senior developers, make it work, prove it works, then make it better. Ready, break!